Everyone, hey, first of all, thank you for attending our first, what we really feel will be a number of valuable workshops this year. And I'm really excited about today's workshop because it is really going to cover an area that's really a concern in today's day and age, which is cybersecurity. Now we get to the fun part, which is an introduction to a dear and close friend of mine, Brian McCann. Brian and I have known each other for over 35 years now. Despite the fact that he looks much younger than I do, he is 3 months older than I. So it's the lighting, I'm sure. But in all seriousness, really, I trust few people in this world more than Brian McCann. I think of him as a very high-class individual. Not only is he a business leader in the technology and business world and cybersecurity world, he's really just a first-class individual, a great husband, a great dad to two wonderful sons. And not only that, but Brian and Rosie are both, very strongly committed to their communities through charitable work. And it's just fantastic what they've done over the years in their various communities where they've lived. Really just a treasure to know and be a part of his family. So, what Brian's going to cover today is really, on a broad basis, some of the cybersecurity threats that we're facing globally. But then he's going to break it down into some more concrete and personalized and common sense approaches that you can take to protect your own safety and that of your family. So I think he's going to do a great job in doing that. If you own a small business, a medium-sized business, or even a large-sized business, you well know that a cybersecurity threat can completely cripple your operations. And that's really what Brian's company does, is try to save companies from that type of environment and threat. So without further delay, Brian McCann.
Okay, wow, thank you, Bob. So a little background on me. So I run a cybersecurity company. It's about a $150 million business. We protect network and applications for essentially a large enterprise. We have thousands of enterprise customers. It's companies like AT&T and Amazon and Citibank and Disney and Walmart are examples. So really big companies, and we make sure that their websites continue to run when they're being attacked. We make sure that traffic to the website is secure, that their customer transactions are secure. So I'm in the world of kind of big enterprise security. And so, our worries are, countries like North Korea and China and Russia and what they're attacking and how to protect our customers. That's less of an issue for what we're going to cover today. And instead, what Bob and I felt would be interesting for you is to talk about threats and trends across the industry, but really tips you could use and that I use with my own family, right? Because I wanted to give you, and you'll see we finish with 5 practical tips to protect your cybersecurity for yourself, your family, and what you can recommend to your friends. So that's the intention for today. Let me start with the internet. So, about the same time Bob and I met in 1985, just before that, ARPANET was founded, which was the beginning of the internet and this little protocol they called TCP/IP. And so the internet was born in the 80s. We didn't really know about it until the 90s. And, if you look at 1992, was one of the first internet trades of a stock. Interestingly, it was done by E-Trade. And that was one of the first internet commerce type applications back when speeds were very, very slow. So I'm going to walk you back because I don't know how many of you remember like what it was like in the very beginning. But if you think about 20 years ago in 2000, we were dialing into the internet with this little squeaky modem that you may remember. It was 64 kilobits per second. That's 0.06 megabits per second. That was just 20 years ago, right? And that's how you got your AOL messages. That's how you did, very early online connections to get chat and that kind of stuff. Well, that was 2000. By 2010, the speeds were up to 4 megabits per second, right? So 100-fold faster in terms of what they were doing. And then by 2020, you can now see speeds of over 40 to 200 megabits per second to the home. Your mobile phone is now delivering tens of megabits per second, multiples to what we were able to get off your connected cable into your house. And what that's done is that's driven a ton of innovation, right? It's more than just email now. It's more than, if you remember, those really cryptic screens that we used to look at because graphics required more bandwidth. They were really cryptic. So if you look at things like in 1995, eBay and Amazon started their first online auctions. That's 1995, right? Kind of crazy. Google was founded in 1998, right? And so the internet, as the internet speeds went up, new applications came and were born and became more practical because the speeds were there. Zoom, the very platform we're on right now, was founded in 2013, right? And now has become kind of a mainstay of how we're staying connected. Video conferencing is fundamental to what we do in the pandemic. And then the first 4K live stream, which is kind of very high definition video, came in 2018. Netflix, you know, if you remember, they used to download the movie. You couldn't even get full-time streaming 15 years ago. So we've come a long way. And really, the main point here is that the internet, what we're using to connect on this call, is changing the game and how we live our lives. The productivity improvements, the applications, the entertainment, it's massive. And these tenfold increases in bandwidth are continuing. Another 10 years from now, we'll be having 2 gigabits to our home. And just think about what that means in terms of gaming applications or video, how this is changing telemedicine, right? So our son is studying basically robotic surgery, which today he has to actually operate in the same room as the patient. Eventually, the network is going to allow him to operate remotely with the robot and him being in a different location. We'll be having Thanksgiving dinner with virtual reality headsets, being able to connect. Bob, in your case, right, you got Ryan and the family out in California. You can't get there all the time. So whoever can't make it, they get the VR headset and they join you, right? And so that's the future of where we're going. And so that's the great opportunity. All sounds wonderful, but there is risk, right? And so, and again, I don't want to scare people. I want people to be thoughtful, right? So I see my mother-in-law's on there, my parents are on there. Like, I want them to know that there is safety in the internet, but I also want everybody to know you have to take the right precautions, right? And so as I give you the tips in the next slide, I want to just kind of alert you to some of the things you need to be thinking about because it's so easy. So one statistic here, 2.3 trillion attempts to hack a personal or a small business account. This is from one of my customers, Sonic Wall. It's one vendor that tracked 2.3 trillion hacks last year. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to steal your personal information. They're trying to be able to disrupt and maybe move things around. They're trying to be able to get access to your accounts. You need those services to be protected. You need to be thoughtful when you're doing and working on those systems. On the upper right, you see 22 billion is the number of IoT, that is Internet of Things, IoT. And IoT devices are things like those Nest thermostats. It's the Ring doorbells. It's now your refrigerator. It's your new hot water heater. Rosie, my wife's got an aroma system that is connected to the cloud and to the internet. All of these devices are just booming, right? We're getting to the point where it's going to be over 35 billion IoT devices next year, and many of those devices aren't safe. They're not well protected. And so if you have them in your home, you need to be thinking about keeping their software updated. Next point here is 44 million Microsoft accounts that are using passwords that are already compromised elsewhere. Now, there's 2 problems that this is pointing out. First of all, a lot of times passwords are compromised and they're being used in the dark web without actually others being aware of it. And the second is that a lot of people use the same password for many different things. And that is very unsafe, right? And that's just what Microsoft is reporting. And then the bottom right is $133,000 is the average cost of a ransomware attack. So ransomware essentially is a malware, a malicious software that gets into your computer and freezes it and basically locks you out until you pay ransom, usually in the form of Bitcoin. Now, you don't hear this too much at the personal level, although it's growing. And the most famous ransomware attack was in 2017 they name these malware, ransomware viruses pretty creatively. This one was called WannaCry, because if you get it, you're going to want to cry. And the biggest target that was successfully landed by the North Koreans that attacked FedEx to the tune of about $4 billion of lost revenue and over $500 million of new IT infrastructure, because FedEx made an acquisition in Europe that wasn't secure and they didn't integrate it correctly. And so these ransomware attacks can be incredibly expensive. A country's state attack on Iraq brought down the city of Atlanta for, I think, about 4 or 5 days. And that was also 2018 or so. So these ransomware attacks can be big. And the way ransomware gets to you or employees is through a technique called phishing, which I'll cover and is something really important to avoid. All right, so now let me give you some helpful tips. And so I want to, again, preface this with, remember, I'm a business enterprise security guy. This is what I'm suggesting to my family, right? So these are not something that has to be done immediately. And there's a variety of different ways of being able to prioritize this. But I'd like you to think about your exposure and how prominent you are. For my parents and my mother-in-law, their exposure is not very high. They're not in the news. They're not flashing their money around in the streets. They're not ticking off their neighbors to try to go after them when they're, they may be an IT programmer or something like that. So it's always important to take these tips with the balance of how much of a target you are, how well known you are, how well known your wealth is. And the more prominent you are known, the more wealthy you are perceived to be, the more you need to be able to take these seriously, right? But so these are the kind of tips that, again, I give to my family and we practice. So the first one is keeping your software updated. It seems kind of obvious. A lot of people don't do it. So when I say keep your software updated, your mobile phone comes with automatic updates. It's an option. Use it, right? I'll say this, for the average personal use device, whether that be your laptop, your mobile phone, your iPad, or any type of Android device, the standard software updates are more than enough to cover your biggest security risks. And anytime there is a known vulnerability out there, what they do is they basically push those security updates, and you'll see in the notes sometimes you can see that. It's really important to use automatic software updates and to be thinking about the software, not just of automatically downloaded, but other things that are in your system. If you're using like a Norton or a McAfee kind of system, make sure that they're automatically updated, because any type of new malware gets automatically updated and they know how to block it. The other piece, which most people miss, is make sure that your IoT device, your Internet of Things devices, your thermostats, your radiators, your music systems are getting updated at least once a year. And so that's a big ask because there's lots of them out there. But you're given essentially, it's like leaving your windows unlocked in your house. If you don't do the software updates, you run the risk of somebody trying to open it up. So the software updates are really important. Second point is to use strong passwords. And so here, when I talk about strong passwords, I mean passwords that are long and complex. And I'll cover passwords first, and then I'll talk about the authentication second. So the most common password, the first one that a hacker tries, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. First one they try. It's automatic. They're done. You're done in a second. The second one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 8 and 9, right? So those are the obvious ones. People just drag their finger right across. Then the next level down is the QWERTY. Again, not very original, but this is what kind of is original. And if you're using these passwords, please take an action right now to redo your passwords, right? The next level down is password 1, just a password with the number 1, because a lot of the times it requires an uppercase, a lowercase, and a number. Easily hacked. And then the other one that I kind of bring up to people, even though passwords get longer, it's when they go to your social media and they see that you're a Yankees fan, for example, they will go and try words that combine into your systems. For example, Yankees 2009, because that's the last time they won the pennant. And so those types of passwords are really risky. Even though Yankees 2009 is a little longer, it's still not good enough, right? So you really need to get creative with your passwords. They should be memorable to some extent, But here's an interesting statistic, and I want you to think about password length. Think about your passwords to really critical, like your banking accounts, your finance, things that really have important things to you, and ask yourself, how many digits, how many characters does that have? And here, I'm going to give you an interesting statistic that I found. If it has 7 characters, a hacker can target your account and hack you in less than half a second. Crazy. If it has 8 characters, they can get you in less than 5 hours. If it has 9 characters, less than 5 days. 10 characters, less than 5 months. 11 characters, less than 5 years. And then 12 characters, less than 50 years. And again, I'm saying less than because if you have Yankees 2009, they will get you faster than an 11-character 5-year kind of as you go forward. So the length of the passwords, being able to combine them into different areas, that's really important. Now, the other thing is you should not be using the same passwords for all accounts. I'm going to give you a really bad example. So in 2016, I was hacked. My Gmail account, I had an 8-digit password. This is 2016. I still should have known better, but someone hacked my Gmail account. And I noticed, back then I did have an iPhone, and I noticed all of a sudden my private account was getting ballooned with a ton of emails. And so what happened is someone hacked my account. They went in and signed me up for a bunch of spam and just totally bombarded my email. I knew something was wrong. I went into my Gmail, changed my password immediately. It stopped adding more, except now I was on all these subscribed loops. That night I had to start cleaning up and going through everything. Well, in my email, I saw an email from AT&T saying, thank you for your order of your new iPhone to ship to Kentucky. And so the hacker went in and, again, my mistake, my AT&T password was the same as my Gmail password. So they were able to use my username and password to be able to get in and be able to essentially order an iPhone, have it shipped to a bogus address, which apparently this is a pretty typical thing. It's not their own home. They just ship it there and they swipe it off the front steps before somebody comes or something like that. So I had to change my AT&T password, my LinkedIn password, all the things at the time that were using the same core password. Key message here, don't use the same password for a lot of important things. And then the other point here is authentication. So most of you and anybody who's accessing Bob's Schwab platforms knows it's a 2-factor authentication system. So essentially 2-factor authentication is something you know and something you have. Okay, so your password you know, but when you're going into a new device, a new laptop, a new mobile phone, it requires you to authenticate that device. And so it'll send you a text message or an email saying, I see a request coming for this new email from this new device, please authorize. All right, 2-factor authentication is super important because it stops a lot of the hacking that happens out there. And when you get a new device, an iPad or a computer, and you're like, oh, I got to re-authenticate. This is such a pain in the neck. Please know you're protecting yourself from the hackers, because if they don't have your laptop and they're trying to get in, they're going to be sending you an authentication request as well. And when you deny it, you know you're trying to be hacked and you should be careful. But it means they found your password. You got to change your password. So my last comment here on passwords is, you want them to be 12 characters or more. You want to have different passwords for everything. How the heck do you keep track of them, right? So I checked this weekend, Bob, I have 130 unique passwords for different accounts. It's a huge number, right? And there is no way that I could put that on a piece of paper anymore or keep it in a file. And so I have moved, and we as a family have moved to a platform called 1Password. It's a password management system. It is very safe and secure, and it allows me to have my own personal passwords, Rosie, my wife, to have her own personal passwords. Brandon and Charles can have theirs, but yet we can also have family shared passwords, for example, Netflix, where we want everybody to be able to have access. So that is by far one of the, and there's several programs. 1Password I'm happy with. I'm not over endorsing it. It's just something that I did my research on and I found it to work very well. If you only have 5 or 6 passwords, you can write them on a piece of paper. If you only have 12 systems that you access, you can put them onto a special document. but don't save it on your desktop as the name passwords. You know, make sure you conceal it, because if anybody hacks your computer, they're going to be looking for it. Call it grandma's recipe list or something, so that they don't find it quite as obvious and you got enough time to respond. So that's passwords, a really important item. Okay, the third one is phishing. So phishing, PH. And phishing essentially is a very, very successful technique that hackers use, where they send you an email pretending to be someone you may trust, like Amazon or FedEx. And they disguise their email to look like that, or they misspell it by one letter. And what they try to do is say, track your package here, click here, track your order, click here. And if you didn't order anything from FedEx, or you're not sure, it looks a little suspicious, it's not like a normal Amazon, don't click it. Because when you click, what happens is it then brings your computer through the internet, because everything's super fast speed, and it then downloads malware, malicious software, onto your computer. That could be anything from ransomware to just simply monitoring software, and start doing keystroke monitoring, or just taking your data and watching something that you do all day long. So phishing is super, super dangerous at the company level. It's the one thing we have a hard time protecting. We can block outbound is the way we do it. We can't stop people from clicking. We can stop them from going to talk to a China server. But at your level, just really think before you click. Just delete the email. And don't be worried about, you know, if it's that important, they'll send you another one, and you have a good chance of being able to follow up. And the other thing is, if you delete it, it's not dangerous. So it's not like if it sits in your deleted items that it can do something and fester in there. Phishing is only activated when you click on it and it deploys the malware software. So really important, think before you click. I know my parents, my mother-in-law have been really good about this. Occasionally my dad will send me a joke, like click here or do something. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it, Dad. I'm not doing it. Yeah, I know they're your friends, but I'm not doing it. So that's an important one. All right, two more. And again, in priority order, these become less critical, but I want to make sure that you have this in your thought process. Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi, if you're in Europe, you may have heard it called Wi-Fi. It's essentially wireless fidelity is what it stands for. It's an 802.11 IEEE standard that was developed a while ago, and it's based on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz frequencies. The key point is, remember when you used to have to plug your computer into the wall? You don't have to do that anymore, right? Most homes, restaurants, I'm in a hotel, like these all have Wi-Fi. And so they have the ability to allow you to connect without cables. Wi-Fi is different than your mobile. Again, I want to differentiate. Mobile phone, you hear about 3G, 4G, 5G. That's mobile technology. Wi-Fi sits, and it's actually a local area networking technology. The issue with Wi-Fi is free Wi-Fi is popping up everywhere. I have it in my hotel. Free Wi-Fi is generally not safe. And I would encourage you to not use public Wi-Fi unless you have to. That's the first thing. Walking into a Starbucks, you're like, oh, I don't have to use my data plan. Let me use the free Wi-Fi. If you're a low profile user, low risk, it's fine. But I can tell you that I've been on flights on planes with the Wi-Fi where people have been hacked, because there's a hacker who basically brings up his laptop and he's able to see who's using Wi-Fi unprotected and can go in and start putting keystroke software in there. A lot of times they'll send them a message just busting chops, but it's dangerous. Free Wi-Fi can be dangerous. Now, the way you get around it is you use a VPN, a virtual private network. So if you use a VPN, you actually can tunnel in a free Wi-Fi area and you don't have to worry about it. The other thing you do is you just basically use it on devices that are not that critical. But ultimately, I would say your data plan is more important than you realized, because free Wi-Fi, in addition to monitoring and understanding what you're doing and everything else, it is very dangerous. In our house, I'll just kind of show you how over the top I am. In our house, we have 3 networks of Wi-Fi, and this is our own house. I have one for Rosie and I. I have one I call guest network. It's called guest, and that's for the guests to be able to use, because if they have any type of software malware, I don't want to get it on our computers. And then I have a separate Wi-Fi for our Internet of Things devices, all of our other networks there. So if they are hacked, it doesn't come to Rosie and I going forward. So that's an extreme example. And again, I consider myself a corner case, but I want to bring it up just to say, even in my own home, we take Wi-Fi very seriously because it can be a big area of breaching. And then my last point is maintaining backups. Today's devices, laptops, iPads, everything, automatic backups are fairly common. I strongly encourage you, all of our family, we're iPhone devices, automatic iCloud backups, because this way, if you lose your device, if you drop it in the toilet, whatever happens, you know that you have a backup ready to go when you get your new device. And if you ever bought a new device, they force you to get a fresh backup before you're able to go forward. If ransomware hits, having an offline backup is also important. So another thing that I do twice a year, Rosie and I take our computers and we back them onto actually a physical hard drive separate from all the clouds. Because ransomware will actually, if it's good, it will get into your cloud backups as well. And that's why the city of Atlanta was shut down for so long, even though they had backups. It got into all of their backup systems. So being able to do a backup physically, be able to move it off the network, and be able to do that once a year, we do it twice a year, that's really recommended in a worst case Armageddon kind of situation for ransomware. And you think about it, that's worth $133,000 for you. That's obviously important. So Bob, so to kind of wrap it up, we talked about the internet. Amazing, potential. It's changing the way we get entertained, the way we live our lives, but there are risks associated to it. And I think each of these 5 tips, keeping your software updated, strong passwords and two-factor authentication, think about clicking or think about your click before you're worried about phishing, choosing your Wi-Fi carefully, and maintaining backups. That is my recommendation. So we can open it up for questions now.
Yeah,
and
great.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, Brian, thank you very much. Awesome presentation. Appreciate it. We do have a couple of questions that have been sent in, and let me kind of go over those. So one of the questions that's come in is, how often should I change my password or passwords in this case? Because you've suggested having multiple passwords. Can you give us some guidance there, general rules of thumb?
Sure. Well, if your password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change it tomorrow. And what I would say is basically the stronger your passwords, the less you need to change them. At the corporate level, our company requires every 90 days you have to change your password, no matter what the length is. At a personal level, that's over the top. I would say your most sensitive systems, you may want to consider more often. Once a year for 12 to 14 digit passwords is fine. When you get to 16 to 20, I mean, again, people can guess anything, so it's still a matter out there. But I would say once a year for, banking accounts, the really important stuff is prudent.
And then where you already mentioned, where should I store my passwords? You kind of answered that question. Certainly not on your desktop because a hacker can get in there. But, I myself have many passwords. People keep them in 3-ring binders offline, but certainly not on a device, it sounds like, right? Other than 1Pass, say, as an app.
Yeah. So there are software products to be able to do it, Bob. And again, I think if you think about the internet and what you're doing, the number of accounts are just going to grow. If you think about having different passwords for everything, it's too complex to manage on a piece of paper. And if you drop that piece of paper, somebody's got access to everything, right? So these systems really do make sense. If you have more than 12 accounts, you should have more than 12 passwords, and that's probably the right time. 1Password, it's $3 a month. It's not that expensive. So, for sanity and having that secure is really important.
Another question, are services like LifeLock, or in some cases where someone's been hacked, we've seen offers from Experian or TransUnion to give you, protection for 1 to 3 years if you've been hacked. Are they worth it, do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely think so. Rosie and I have Experian. So, so they track, in addition to your credit, if anybody's applying for your credit, all those kinds of things. If your social security number starts going on the dark web, it reports it, right? So we had, emails that were being reproduced in a couple of areas. One of my old Yahoo emails. And again, I think I'm probably much higher risk than your average client. But we definitely use it. If your password, so Facebook, for example, when Facebook was compromised, I got an alert that your password is active before they were hacked. And so what you have is the request to basically change your password. It alerts you for those kinds of things, which are very valuable.
You know, we've sent out and have to send out, because we're a registered investment advisory firm, secure emails. And I'm looking at my brother-in-law. He loves this system, absolutely loves the system. So, but we're required to send out secure emails to protect your information. So can you explain, not just for my brother-in-law's benefit, but for all of our clients' benefit, why would we send out an encrypted email that has an attachment on it? So.
Yeah. And Bob, I get it, right? Especially when you want something quick and you're on the road, you're like, listen, just send me this document. I want to get it quickly. I mean, the reality is email, people choose, you know, they could have a 5-digit password with no 2-factor authentication, and you're sending that, you know, things that include their social security numbers and a lot of really precious information. So your system is protected by 2-factor authentication. So by sending it through that secure system, you are guaranteeing that whoever's receiving that has something they know, something they have to be able to access through to it.
The great question here, what if the password aggregator, I guess 1Pass, is hacked? I've asked that, we talked about that. I guess in theory it could be hacked. Any response there?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been around this whole thing. I used to have an Excel spreadsheet that was hidden inside and all this funky stuff going on. I mean, you got to do something. So having a 25-digit password with 2-factor authentication should help you sleep at night, if nothing else. And, you know, one of the nice things about the password, you know, it can generate some of its own passwords, and it makes it a lot easier on the other side. You can have it generate its own. You just got to keep track of that 1Password. And the other thing, maybe, Bob, you kind of hope for everybody. And 1Password, it opens with my facial recognition. So my major, you know, once my device is, once the device is authenticated, I use my face to actually open it up. So I don't have to type this 25-digit password all the time either. And that's what makes it better. Once we get to retinal scanning for passwords, then that's really going to be amazing. The issue that all of us have is my laptop is not the same as my iPhone. So, you know, you still need to be able to have, you know, different ways to get to your platforms.
Brian, another question here. What about texting? Is that vulnerable from hacking?
Great question. So yes, the answer is phishing exists in email as well as texting. UPS is, you know, I've seen them where they say UPS tracking number, click here. I didn't have a UPS shipping they expected, and you click there and it could try to open up something. I will say that mobile devices, IBM or Apple specifically, is much more secure. Android is a very open platform, so it's very flexible. That's an advantage to the platform. The disadvantage is it's not as locked down secure-wise. So iPhones tend to be more secure than Android devices. You just need to overlay a Norton antivirus or something into the Android device, and then it also gets very secure. But just be careful on what you click. Okay,
and one last question. Would you recommend a VPN?
Yes, you should have a VPN. VPN Express is kind of, again, plain vanilla version. That's actually good. It's easy. It's not too expensive. But yes, there's a variety of different public VPN or you know, commercially available VPNs.
Explain what a VPN is, Brian. Explain what a VPN is.
VPN is virtual private network. And what it does is it sets up an encrypted tunnel between your device and what you're communicating to. And so it prevents anybody, if I think about the Wi-Fi here, I'm currently running on a VPN through the public Wi-Fi in the hotel to get to the internet. So anybody on this Wi-Fi network in this hotel can see that I'm communicating from my room to the internet, but they can't see what's inside of it. And so that's kind of, it's an encrypted, think of it as like kind of a canister that allows you to put your data in there. All they can do is see the outside of the canister. It's encryption.
Hey, Brian, I think we're up against the clock here a little bit, but what I wanted to do is just thank you first for, first of all, coming to the event and offering, you know, I think what was valuable insight. I have everyone on mute, but can I get an acknowledgement with a nod that you felt this was helpful today? Okay, great. So thank you very much. Brian, your mother's nodding. She's gonna nod at anything we do. Okay.
Yeah. It's mom. You know it.
We gotta love mom. So
yep.
She's gonna nod at anything. So in any event though, but listen, I wanted to thank you again for just a fantastic session here. Again, In the future events, what we're going to be doing is a wine tasting, kind of a fun event where we'll send you some wine if you register, and we'll have you participate in that. Should be fun. Other events like this, the future of travel this year, residential real estate, market updates, and more videos that we'll do on the markets as well. Again, to everyone out there, both clients and friends of clients, I certainly wanted to say thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your commitment to solution-driven wealth. It's very much appreciated. We don't take your commitment to us lightly, and that's why we're doing events like this to protect you and your friends and your family. Again, we wish you a great start to the new year, a healthy and happy start, and we look forward to speaking with you real soon. Thank you again, everyone.